Hi, I'm Heather Darch, and this is a presentation by the Quebec Anglophone Heritage Network. In this series called Raising Spirits, we are telling the stories of our vanishing heritage. In small, waning, or all but disappeared villages and hamlets, the foundations of homes, barns, and churches sink a little lower. The grass and brambles grow higher, and stone walls and gravestones crumble. These little communities that once represented the dreams and efforts of families in the early settlement era of Quebec's eastern townships are now mere crossroads. The ruins, foundations, and gravestones give up their silent testimony to the people who started with nothing but their hopes and dreams, and who sometimes had to leave their dreams behind them. This is Heathton.
The community of Heathton, as I remember it when I was here in the summertime, there was a church at the corner of Heathton there. My mother would take me there in the summertime to go to service. It had no electricity, just had kerosene lamps and a wood stove, but in the summertime you didn't need that. But there, just a few buildings around and farms at that time. In the 40s, there were farms. It was a farming community, and now it's changing. A lot of people actually are working online, people moving in who are working online. I'm George Weller, George Kalman Weller Jr. We are standing in the Heathton, Quebec Cemetery, and my settler ancestors are buried here. Josiah Keyser and his wife, Sarah Belknap, and one child. They moved here in 1809, down the road in South Barnston. No, South Barnston is the next town west of Heathton. This is in Heathton. We are physically about 3 or 4 miles north of the Vermont border, north of Holland, Vermont, and about 8 miles east of 55, Stanstead. And this whole area was all settled by English-speaking people. A lot from the US, a few from England and Europe, but there were no French here, none. And one of the things about the area is they were not United Empire loyalists, they were just here for cheap land.
Heathton was settled by the Heath family, who arrived early on in the opening of Barnston Township. John Heath was born in 1771 in Plymouth, New Hampshire. He married Margaret Mosher, and together they had 10 children. In 1806, John and Margaret purchased land from the agents Lester and Morrow. The tract of land purchased by the Heaths eventually became known as Heathton. The Heath family was large and married into other pioneer families in the area who were opening up farms and clearing land at the same time. The blending together of families can be clearly seen in the Heathton Cemetery, which also speaks to the important network of help and solidarity that developed in order to succeed in this newly opened land and the creation of stable communities. Some of these early hamlets and villages in Barnston Township still exist, including Baldwin's Mills and Ways Mills. Others, on the other hand, like Heathton, are no more than a place name at a crossroads.
This is Heathton, and this is the corner of Heathton, and there was a church right here at one time, and I believe my mother said there was a blacksmith shop here, and that's pretty much what is Heathton. And my ancestors are down the road a little bit over at South Barnston. The War of 1812, my ancestors there, the kids were playing in the yard and thought they detected thunder, thought they heard noise. They did hear noise. And so they ran in the house and said, "Daddy, Daddy, it's going to rain. You hear thunder." Daddy came out and said, "No, the sun's shining." And he said, no, come put your ear in the ground. listen. And sure enough, you could hear booming. The next day or 2 days later, a scout came along, said there's a battle going on at Plattsburgh, New York. They could detect the cannon fire from War of 1812. So this area here is stage road going through and road down to Ways Mills this way. But back in 1800, this was just a bog here. And you couldn't go from South Barnston and Heathton to Stanstead because it was a big bog. So my great-great-grandfather and other neighbors, they corduroyed this bog and made a road. You take a bunch of these trees and you lay them down one next to the other, and then you put dirt or gravel or something on top, and then you can go across it. And then it's sort of like a floating bridge. But that's what they did, and that's what made a road between Heathton, South Barnston to Stanstead possible. Yeah, it's a different way when you're conquering the land and you want to go somewhere, then you figure a way to do it. The way you could make actual cash money was by burning trees and taking the ash and dripping water through it and making pearl ash. It was a potassium compound. It was a product that you could actually sell and make money and pay taxes or pay your property off, whatever. So that's an initial thing. You had to clear land for your agriculture, for farming cows and whatnot. But you could also take the trees that you cut down, didn't have a sawmill, then you could burn them and make pearl ash. This is Josiah Keyser, K-E-Y-S-E-R. This is Sarah Dunlap Keyser. I think that's K-E-Z-A-R. And the other one is K-E-Y-S-E-R. So the spellings were different. This was the original Keyser that was maybe 2 when the family moved to this area, maybe a little older. Married Sarah Belknap and stayed. All the rest of the Keysers moved west. Now, why did they go west? 2 things. One, they came in 1809, and in 1816, Tambora Island in the Pacific Ocean blew up and put a massive amount of dust in the atmosphere. It was like a nuclear winter. So in the summer, they had a freeze every month. Things would grow for a long time, and then bam, would freeze. And they plant new stuff, and then freeze. But the winter was warmer than normal. It froze just barely because of the atmosphere. There was that, and the second thing that happened in 1825, the Erie Canal opened up. So anybody that was having difficulty farming here or whatever, they had the opportunity to move west. You know, the concept, move west, young man? Well, a lot did. The challenges for the community that I can see, I mean, I don't live back then, but from what I've heard, some of them were religious. Like Heathton here had a Methodist church. On my grandfather's farm, great-grandpa built an Adventist church. Adventist has a nice history, starting with the Millerites. They believed the end of the world was coming, and Millard was challenged when, he finally decided when, it didn't happen. But anyway, so I guess you couldn't work really on Sunday, so my grandfather's brother died, and then his wife eventually sold the land to my dad because they were having financial trouble, because you can't have a farm and milk cows and whatnot and not work very hard on Sunday too. So that's one of the challenges. The challenge in agriculture is always getting some money to pay whatever bills you have to have. So some people go away and take jobs. Lots of times farm families, both in the US and Canada, Somebody will be out working, trying to bring in more money to keep the farm going. Even if you have 1,000 acres or several thousand acres, there's still never quite enough money. Times were tough back then, but people had the freedom to do what they wanted. There was critters in the woods to shoot for meat. You could clear land and grow something. Stories that I heard from my ancestors said, if you could see smoke from somebody's chimney, you were too close, you needed to move. So that's the way pioneer ancestors thought. Well, it was a community of people who were here, energetic and clearing land and building a life and farm and kids and whatnot. And now it's evolved to the point where it's farms and there's no more town. It's just a crossroads, which is Heathton.